Assalamualaikum everyone, this is Aisha Yusuf from Catch Up with Aisha the UAE series. मैं हमेशा ये कहती हूँ ज़िंदगी में ना मीनिंगफुल कनेक्शंस बनाने चाहिए बिकॉज यू नेवर नो व्हेन आर यू गोइंग टू मीट समवन व्हेन एंड वेयर और इसी तरह मेरे साथ भी हुआ वन ऑफ माय ओल्ड कॉलीग्स एंड वेरी वेरी गुड ह्यूमन बीइंग आई आई हैव गॉट अ चांस टू मीट हिम हियर इन दुबई as Mr. Rehan Naeem. Hi Rehan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Aisha?
Great, thank you.
You're welcome to Dubai.
Thank you. Thank you so much for making time. Let me tell you all, Rehan has 23 years plus experience in leadership and culture enablement. And now in Dubai, he is the founder and managing partner of Become, which is providing solutions to people. So Rehan, tell me, how's the life different from Pakistan here?
Well, the life is very different from Pakistan, especially for me because I'm born and brought up in Dubai. And then it was
Okay.
just 6 years from 2018 that I had a small stint in Pakistan working for mental finance. Life here is very different. It's a lot more safer. It's a lot more futuristic.
Better?
Better in what sense? Better if you want to learn something new every day.
Yes.
This is the place to be.
ग्रेट जब हम बात करते हैं लर्निंग की ना तो सबसे ज़रूरी है कि अब हम बात करें मिलेनियल्स एंड जेन ज़ी द जनरेशनल गैप दैट वी सी राइट सो आप तो लीडरशिप में यू हैव इमेंस एक्सपीरियंस इन दिस व्हाट डिफरेंस डू यू सी इन जेन ज़ीज एंड मिलेनियल्स their work ethics?
There's a lot of differences in the Gen Zs and the millennials, and of course in the work ethics. That's because the way they've been brought up. That's because the way that they see the world operating around them. The major differences that we see is that there's a little more patience. They are a lot more future focused.
Exactly.
They are working towards their future.
True.
But with Gen Z is I see them living in the future,
Yeah.
which is what the biggest difference to me is.
Exactly. Also, I think they are born in an era of digital era. They are very tech savvy. तो जब हम बात करते हैं कि टॉलरेंस कम है जैसे आपने कहा पेशेंस कम है तो जब लीडरशिप की बात आती है do you think they're gonna become good great leaders what are the things that are important?
See, and that's what my concern with Gen Zs is. A lot of people are talking about the retention of Gen Zs in organizations. I have a different take on that.
Okay.
What I believe is that in the next 5 to 10 years, they will be the leaders of organizations and countries.
Absolutely.
And are we grooming them as the right kind of leaders?
Exactly.
So the biggest problem I see is that with Gen Zs, we have to develop them as leaders of the future by providing them the skills and the wisdom that's required for leading in the future. Whereas in focused more on retaining them, trying to make them work like us as Gen Zs or
Right.
the other generations as we say. So the problem I see is that we're making them adapt to the way we think leadership needs to happen in organizations and around us.
Yeah.
Whereas we need to adapt to their ways because they come up with a different approach of how life is and work should be in organizations.
दैट्स अ ब्यूटीफुल माइंडसेट रेहान जो आपने अभी बात की मेरा अगला सवाल यही था कि चलिए जेनजीज तो हैं उनका एक वर्क एथिक है लेकिन ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस प्ले अ ह्यूज रोल इन टेलरिंग देम इन मेकिंग देम द फ्यूचर लीडर्स so what do you think how organizations should be adaptable according to Gen Zs?
See, another problem that I come across in organizations is the problem of trying to solve this problem through optics. They're trying to create environments that look good, but not really feel good. And that's where culture comes into play.
True.
Because when you talk about culture in organizations, it's a lot more deeper than we normally think.
Yes.
What organizations really need to get it into is they need to start engaging with these people to understand how is it that they want to work today. Uh, what can organizations do to facilitate that? But more importantly, they have to start understanding that how are we grooming them as leaders? And how will they be leading these organizations in the future? Because if we get to a stage where these guys get into leadership position with a very different mindset of leading organizations, and we still have people from the past who want to lead the organizations in a different manner, that conflict is going to stop these organizations from moving forward. They will come across a crossroad, which is going to be very difficult for them to define.
So tell me exactly what crucial steps an organization needs to take, right, to tailor these Gen Zs and make them help them to become a good leaders. What changes an organization needs to adapt that they were doing with millennials?
Right. So first of all, I think we need to give them space and we need to give them opportunities.
Correct.
look, one of the things with Gen Zs is that they want instant gratification.
Yes.
And their attention span's really short. So we have to create work environments that support that way of working.
Correct.
And that's where agile today, you may have come across as a buzzword.
Yeah.
Because it's about speed, it's about getting things done and moving on to the next one. That's the kind of work environment organizations will have to create for this generation to be able to be engaged in the process and grow in the organization.
Correct. Correct. What do you think can create a happy culture at work? We've always talked about work-life balance, but it really doesn't, be implemented. सबके केस में नहीं होता. Millennials तो मुझे लगता है बहुत ही ज़्यादा काम करते हैं and they do not really talk about themselves. They give priority to the organizations. But Gen Zs on the other hand, as you said, they need quick results and they won't take things on them. So, उस पे मुझे बताएं.
Again, I think the biggest difference between the millennials and Gen Z is millennials are more career focused. They, work for them is most important.
True.
And they work for a living and they work for a career.
Yeah.
Your Gen Zs are different. Your Gen Zs are working because they need money for them to do what they want to do.
Yes.
So the approach is very different.
Self-aware, we can say.
Not self-aware. I'd say they are more, sort of self-oriented. They focus on themselves more
Okay.
than others.
Right.
So they are more focused on what is it that I am doing, what is it that I am learning, then what is the impact that I'm creating from the organization. So that's an area that organizations need to focus on, engage them in an organization and make them part of the bigger picture. For them to realize that it is not the task that they are more focused, that they should be more focused on. It is the bigger picture of the organization that they should be more focused on. See, millennials were a lot more purpose oriented.
Yeah.
These guys are meaning oriented, but they're not purpose oriented. We have to groom them to be a lot more purpose oriented. What is the purpose of your role? What is the purpose of your department? What is the purpose of the organization in the wider ecosystem?
Correct. So if I ask you, what's your leadership style?
Well, my leadership style is very inclusive because you know that I led mainly with management trainees and groom them to become senior managers in the organization. So I work a lot with Gen Zs and the generation that's following
Yes.
the Gen Zs. I give them opportunities to learn and grow. I give them opportunities to expose themselves to the top management and understand how is it that they think and do things. For them to learn from them, adapt their mindsets and then be able to do things in a much more collaborative manner.
Right. So do you think Gen Zs wants to be heard? Like, and they are very confident. आपने तो इतने different kind of, I think you must have worked with millennials as well and training
Almost all generations.
us. You have worked with all generations. So उन सभी generations में what one major difference you see and what you have learned from them?
See, the major difference is the world is moving at a very exponential speed, and people have to be on their toes all the time. There's very little time for you to be able to reflect on what you are doing, what is it that you want to do, and are you in the right direction or not?
Correct.
Right. So the biggest challenge I see is that with Gen Zs, because they are more tech savvy, I think they do get more time for self reflection, and that's why they're making their decisions based on how they want themselves to be. Whereas the previous generations still want to think a lot more. They want to ponder on some of the decisions that they make. So the decision making process is a lot more slower. It's a lot more risk averse as compared to the decision making process of Gen Zs. What I've learned from them is, and that's what innovation and transformation is all about: experimentation,
Exactly.
trial and error. It's okay to fail, but how quickly can you be, resilient and bounce back from the situation? That's a quality that I'm learning from Gen Z. To try things out, it's okay to fail, and if we fail, what is it that we could do differently, and keep, trying the same thing in different methods.
Correct. But do you think, Rehan, that being tech savvy in this digital era, there's so much information around this. ये भी कहीं न कहीं एक प्रॉब्लम हो जाता है जब आपके पास एक क्लटर हो जाता है ना लाइफ में इन्फॉर्मेशन का. There's too much happening. So Gen Z is surrounded by too much information and consuming too many things at a time. So usually what I've seen, this generation is very depressed and anxious.
Look, that will always be the case. Information overload sabke liye.
Yeah.
Now, even for us,
Yeah.
the information overload, I think it's a lot more difficult for
Mm.
us to manage so much data
It's
as compared to the Gen Zs
true.
because they are groomed with the data.
Yes.
So it's a lot more difficult for the millennials and
Mm.
the ones above to work with so much data
Mm.
and make meaning out of that. The Gen Zs, I think, are a lot more savvier with the data.
Yes.
But I think that's an art that everyone needs to learn, that there's data all around us. How do we make data? How do we make data-driven decisions?
Right.
And work with data that's relevant, that is valid, and that is the right kind of data for us. So filtration of information that's coming to us is the key that Gen Z needs to learn, and then have their focus based on whatever is more relevant.
Correct. Rehan, tell me something about your trainings. How do you keep people engaged in your trainings? I know, but I want you to tell the viewers, leaders who are listening to us right now.
See, I'm a big believer that learning is broken. And, the way learning needs to happen in organizations and outside of organizations, even in academic
Yes.
institutions, has to change. It has to be a lot more, enablement
Correct.
than, information
Absolutely.
sorts. What I mean by that is that in general, people train others by telling them what is it that they should be doing differently.
Exactly.
Whereas when I develop training programs or initiatives or any learning initiatives, my focus is to make sure that people acquire the skill, have the time and place to practice that,
Correct.
so they can apply it back in their personal and work lives.
Wow.
So it has to be a lot more action oriented.
Right.
It has to bring in a lot of neuroscience in terms of how is it that we rewire people's minds towards new ways of doing things. So when they go back from the learning, 80% of the learning is not lost.
Wow, that's a beautiful thinking, and the way you do it, it's absolutely amazing. So, Rehan, we have talked about what changes or things a company should adapt, an organization should adapt for Gen Zs. पर जेन ज़ीज़ को भी तो करना चाहिए ना कुछ चेंजेस अपने अंदर. So what do you think, what skills or what patterns Gen Z should adopt to cope up with the organization and become a better leader of future?
Yeah, I think the majority of the adoption needs to happen with the millennials, not the Gen Zs,
Okay.
because we have to accept
हाँ,
the new ways of life,
true.
the new mindsets that are coming into play, and adapt ourselves to them.
Correct.
Because in the next 5 to 7 years, 50% of the workforce is going to be Gen Zs.
Yes.
So
Gen Beta is already started 2025.
absolutely. By 2035, I was
Yeah.
looking at this research, 7% of the population of the workforce is going to be the Gen Betas.
Yes.
So we have this new generation that's coming into play. So a lot of adoption that needs to happen with the millennials, not with the Gen Zs.
Exactly. Yeah.
However, having said that, I think Gen Zs need to start realizing what are the skills of the future that they need to focus on, and they have to be a lot more foresight oriented. They have to be a lot more future oriented. They are focusing a lot on the today
Right.
because they believe that the future is already here, and that's right.
That
The future is already here, but there is still future that is to be unfolded in the coming years. And how is it that they are preparing for that future by thinking about the future today is the most important skill that Gen Z should acquire. And at this point, I'd like to speak about His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, who's the ruler of Dubai, who I remember in 2014, and that's where I started working towards, transformation and culture in helping organizations become organizations of the future. In 2020, in 2014, 15, he said that I want my leaders to be physically in the present and mentally in the future.
wow.
And I want them to bring the future into the present. And that's the skill that Gen Zs should focus on today. They should have a very clear foresight of where the world is headed. They should be able to, with scenario planning, be able to see what plausible futures will be, taking
Yes.
shape, and then start working on that future today.
Correct.
And if that's the approach that they take,
Hmm.
it'll be easier for them to adapt in the workforce and it'll be a lot more easier for them to be able to connect with the other generations as well.
Absolutely. And also, I would like to ask you that what key quality you think a leader should possess, a good leader should have a key quality?
There's only one quality, that I would focus on in this perspective. Although there's a lot many competencies that I believe are very important for leaders to adopt, which you generally don't see in leadership development. But I think one quality for the future that I believe is very important is courage.
Courage.
The courage to be able to make mistakes, the courage to be able to think about the future today,
Yes.
the courage to be able to start working for the future today, the courage to be able to ask the right questions, and the courage to be able to drop ideas that will not have an impact in the future.
And the courage to be consistent. I think
Insisting itself is a different competency. You actually look at the framework that we are working
well,
to become, the leadership development framework, consistency is one of the competencies.
yes.
I picked it up from the competencies of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed because that's one of the areas that I'm working on.
Okay.
I'm building a leadership framework on the competencies of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, and researching about what are those competencies that has made Dubai and the UAE what it is today.
Absolutely.
And you're absolutely right. Courage and consistency are the two competencies that have led UAE and Dubai to become what it is.
Exactly. And one more thing, I personally believe that मैंने जितने भी अच्छे leaders देखे बड़े, they're very humble. They are extremely humble. चाहे उनका रुतबा कितना बड़ा हो or you know how big name they are, they're very extremely humble. So this is something this needs to be there.
हमारे बड़े बूढ़े वाले साहब भी कहते थे कि जितना फलदार दरख्त होगा उतना झुका होगा.
हाँ.
So the higher you go up the order in
Yeah.
an organization, humility and humbleness is a skill or a competency or a behavior, whatever you may want to call it, that becomes the most essential.
Because I've seen this young generation is extremely blunt. कभी-कभी आपने रिस्पेक्ट करना होता है और देखना होता है ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में भी बिकॉज़ इट्स नॉट योर होम, यू आर एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. सो दिस इज़ आल्सो अ थिंग, अ ट्रेट दैट नीड्स टू बी लर्न्ड.
I would
What do you
disagree with you on that. I don't think being blunt is a negative quality. Uh, Look, the speed of decision making is changing.
Yeah.
The speed of things happening in
You're
the
right.
organization is changing. There is no time to ponder on thoughts.
Yeah.
Instant decision making needs to happen.
Hmm.
And that's what Gen Zs have learned. Instant gratification.
I agree.
You have a meal, you want likes instantly on Instagram with Facebook. You do something or you visit a particular place, you want the world to react to your experience immediately, right? So it's not about being blunt, it's about being quick.
It's yeah, right. Okay, one last question I'll ask you, Rehan, that you have worked in Pakistan, you have worked in UAE. What major differences you see? Okay, so whatever you would like to say. In Pakistan culture and in UAE culture in terms of leadership specifically.
बहुत फर्क है. देखिए, in terms of leadership, globally,
हाँ.
leaders have been groomed to become leaders.
हाँ.
Uh, Unfortunately, in Pakistan, leaders have not been groomed to become leaders. And that's why you do not see many leaders in organizations, even in the government in Pakistan. So that element is something that Pakistan needs to focus on.
Yeah.
We have to groom leaders and we
Yeah.
have to, sort of really help them define what leadership is
Right.
and then build in behaviors and the mindset that is leadership style, like, not manager like. You
Yeah.
find a lot more managers with the years of experience, they've come into titles that are leadership titles.
I agree.
They're not behaving like leaders.
I agree.
They're only playing the role of the title that they have.
Even I think leaders needs the training, the coaching. If let's suppose someone has been given a role, मुझे ऐसा लगता है हर अच्छा हार्ड वर्किंग एम्प्लॉय अच्छा लीडर नहीं हो सकता बिकॉज लीडरशिप इज अ क्वालिटी. अगर आप में वो चीज़ यू आर नॉट अ बॉर्न लीडर, यू कैन बिकम वन बाय लर्निंग. सो लीडर्स की भी ट्रेनिंग बहुत ज़रूरी है.
Leaders का जो first point of departure
हाँ.
is self-awareness and self-development.
Correct.
Leaders who do not become aware of self and who do not develop themselves will be left out.
Yeah.
They cannot be known at me. They shouldn't be known at me.
Yeah, I agree.
So they have to keep working on their leadership every now and then. They have to develop themselves as better leaders. It's like what Simon Sinek says. It's like a muscle. The more you practice, the better it becomes.
Right.
The stronger it becomes. So
Correct.
leadership isn't something that you've achieved
Yes.
and then you're great at it. Leadership is something that you constantly evolve yourself.
Yes. Maintaining that and empowering your people.
Absolutely. Up. Again, I keep bringing on Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid into this conversation because I think he's one of the best. He is one of the best leaders in the world.
Indeed.
He is one of the top leaders in the world, undoubtedly. Uh, a leader who's demonstrated what real leadership is on. So, to summarize, what you just said, I'd say the first responsibility of the leader is to be courageous and develop future leaders.
Right.
Give as much as they can to the other leaders for themselves become in this space.
Okay, Rehan, I think we have a good discussion about the leadership and Gen Zs. एक और मसला बड़ा चल रहा है पाकिस्तान में सबको पाकिस्तान से बाहर निकलना एंड दे थिंक बाहर जाते ही हमने ना जॉब मिल जानी है बट दैट्स नॉट द केस जॉब मार्केट इज एक्सट्रीमली क्लटर्ड मैंने भी जो आके यहाँ पे देखा और वहाँ से भी मुझे अंदाजा था इट्स एक्सट्रीमली क्लटर्ड बिकॉज इज अ लॉट ऑफ कॉम्पिटिशन सो यू नो टू मेंटेन दैट पेस what we need to do when we go abroad, how we should do the job hunt, and tell me something about it.
See, I think first of all, you're right. A lot of people are leaving Pakistan. Unfortunately, brain
Yeah.
drain is at its. I think it's at an ultimate high
Yeah.
in the history of Pakistan right now. Very unfortunate, but if you do not provide uh, opportunities to the people of your country, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
This is what has happened with Africa. This is what is now currently happening with Pakistan. It's a sad state, but I'm sure the movers and shakers of Pakistan will be thinking around it and hoping to put an end to that. But coming back to your question, it is about acquiring the skills of the future. We need to see whether the generation that we're producing from our educational system in Pakistan, are they good enough to compete with the international
Absolutely.
Gen Zs of the same age group of the same market? So that's an area that we need to start looking at. Are we really preparing our youth to compete with the rest of the world?
So you think the major gap is the learning part. Everyone needs to be skilled, more skilled, and needs to learn more if we are going abroad and we want to apply. So, and we need to keep in mind that we need to be competing with a lot of ethnicities, right? You know?
Absolutely. Ethnic backgrounds. We will be competing with, quality academic backgrounds.
Correct.
You'll be competing with what's happening in the future.
Yeah.
You may have seen right across where we are sitting, the Museum of the Future. You should go and visit that and see that the world is talking about what is it that we would do in 2040, 2045, 2041.
Sure.
And we're still living in the past. We're still living in the last.
बिजली मतलब अब तो ऐसा हो गया है कि पानी बिजली गैस बेसिक नीड्स वी आर फाइटिंग फॉर दैट however Pakistan is our country and Pakistan is good but you know it's the people लोग ही बनाते हैं ना एक जगह को तो यहाँ पे भी जो मुझे सबसे अच्छी चीज़ लगती है the discipline and the safety and the security. I think that's one of the reasons why people want to move out. क्योंकि आप घर से भी निकलो आपको एक खौफ है कि रॉबरी हो जाएगी you're not safe. यहाँ पे मैं अकेले भी घूम रही थी it's all safe.
So the question that I have to you, Tanay, is that when are you more productive? When your mind is, psychologically safe? Is that when you're more productive? Or when your mind is scanning for dangers for you to address? When do you think you're more productive?
Obviously when I am safe. Because then I am not investing my energy in that thing. क्योंकि वो जो एनर्जी बच रही है वहाँ से वो मैं किसी और चीज़ में लगा सकती हूँ किसी प्रोडक्टिव काम का
Absolutely. So we have to in Pakistan create
Exactly.
in organizations in Pakistan, we have to create a space
Yes.
for these
Yeah.
young generation to think beyond
Yes.
just the basics. And that is when we're going to start to see Pakistan grow. Again, I'll give you an example of the UAE. They had the Minister for Happiness in 2015.
Okay, wow.
The first Minister for Happiness in the world.
So
Had the Minister for Artificial Intelligence back in 2014-15. So they were investing, they were actually making their youth think about the future rather than worry about the present.
Agree.
And that's the change we need in Pakistan. We need to give them psychological safety for them to be able to start worrying about the future and not
Yeah.
of the present.
एग्जैक्टली एंड इट्स सो इम्पोर्टेंट बिकॉज वही बात है एनर्जी अगर आपकी उस जगह पे इन्वेस्ट हो रही होगी दैट डजंट रियली रिक्वायर इट हाउ विल यू इन्वेस्ट इन समथिंग टू मेक फ्यूचर बेटर
Absolutely. So, I can summarize all of this
या
by saying you were asking what is it that organizations in Pakistan need to do
यस
differently? They need to figure out where is it that they need to channelize the energies of their employees. And if
एब्सोल्युटली
they can channelize the energies of their employees in the right direction, the organizations will be successful. And you have a few examples in Pakistan
या
that you can talk about.
Absolutely. With this beautiful thought, everyone, so we were in conversation with Rehan Naeem and it was lovely. I hope आपको बहुत सारी चीज़ें समझने, जानने और लर्निंग के लिए मिली होंगी. I will be back again in another episode. Till then अपना बहुत ख्याल रखें और प्लीज़ यूएई की तरह कराची को बहुत साफ रखें. Thank you so much. Allah